Hey, if you found this podcast helpful, I would love if you made a donation. If you receive value from this show, even if it's as small as the price of a coffee, please donate through the link in the show notes or go to over40fabulousandpregnant.com and click donate at the top of the page. Thank you for making this podcast successful.
You and I till the end, don't need to pretend again and again. We'll stick together. Everything is alright with you by my side. We won't say goodbye. We'll stick together.
Welcome to Over 40 Fabulous and Pregnant. I am your host, Jamie Massey, and you're listening to bonus episode 3. If you're looking for pregnancy stories of women over 40, you've come to the right place. And today on the show, we are sharing part of my story. If this is your first episode, it took us 3 years and 5 pregnancies for our rainbow baby using donor eggs. I am 43, and while recording this, I am 6 months postpartum with our first baby. So today's episode is part of that journey. And today we are talking about the recovery. We left off the last show with us as a family of 3 leaving the hospital to go home. Now, the first 2 bonus episodes have been more of a chronological story timeline of events. And I think this one is going to be a little different. I have listed out like 26 items that I just kind of want to go and talk about and not really put them in any particular order. Before we get into today's episode, I wanted to share some listener feedback, and it comes from, well, I'm actually not sure because it's an adoption Instagram account. But she says, "Good morning, Jamie. I hope you are well. I am seeking some advice. Because of your Instagram account, I finally got the courage to go to a fertility clinic and discuss my options. So thank you so much." It's because of these messages that I keep on posting on Instagram and I keep on publishing podcast episodes. And she went on to ask some medical questions about medicine that, of course, I really couldn't answer. And I just shared my experience with what I took when I was going through the egg retrieval and the transfer. So I wish her the best of luck in her journey to baby. But let's begin today's show. You know, it's funny. Whenever I've interviewed other women, I have always focused the interview on the pregnancy. And after going through all this, I realize just how important the recovery part is. And I really want to focus a little more on that in future women's stories. So, getting into kind of my topics, bleeding. I think I bled for like at least 8 weeks. I know it seems like normal is, I guess, around 6, but I definitely went past that. But my midwife was not concerned at all. I was like, oh my God, how long can this last? But apparently it can last a while. The next one is visitors on my list. And what we kind of discussed is not having any visitors for the first 2 weeks. Now, I do feel it's an exception to have family around. I'm okay with that. Some close family. But as far as like friends and stuff, I really wanted to keep it, people coming after 2 weeks. And I'm really happy I did that because those first 2 weeks can just be really overwhelming. You're not getting any sleep, showering. Are you even eating? I was really happy we kind of made that decision for sure. The next one is diet. Whenever I was pregnant, I did really kind of low carb. And I say that, it kind of sounds cliche when I say that. But I have done all the diets. I have done vegetarian. I have done vegan. I've also done the carnivore diet and keto. And my body responds really well to keto and carnivore. As surprising as that is, really, to me, my body just really responds well. And I had gestational diabetes while I was pregnant. So I kind of followed that same thing. I didn't do all meat, but we ate a ton of steak, lots of meat, and actually red meat. I actually don't care for chicken very much. There's not a lot of fat on it, and it just doesn't fill me up. So we really focused on lots of red meat. We also buy a cow ever so often. And so that is kind of a big part of my diet. Now, when it came to feeding my baby, as I mentioned in the hospital, we use donor milk. And coming home, I kind of knew, I was like, he's eating so much. My milk is, I just don't have the supply for him. And so we ordered donor milk, and I knew that I didn't want to get anything from the drugstore or, the big box store. It was really important to me to have as little as like soy and sugar and fructose and all that. I just didn't want it in the milk as much as possible. And so we purchased, I think someone on the show mentioned it, about goat's milk. I found this, it's called HIPP, HIPP for the formula. And it's from Germany. I mean, the labeling on the container is all in German. And that's what we've been going with. And we actually still give it to him. It's not a breast milk supply issue. Our doctor recommended that we give it to him because she says there's not vitamin D in breast milk, and the formula has it. I have heard, when I tell people this, they're like, what? And they say I'm exclusively breastfeeding with no formula. So I know it's possible that you really don't need to, but we give him 2 ounces of formula twice a week for that reason. I guess a few weeks in, well, probably even a month. The first time I had a lactation consultant come, I don't think she was the best, but she said he had ties. And she's like, I don't think it's that much of a problem. And when she was telling us that, I kind of was like, she just wasn't a very confident lactation consultant. And we saw another one. And because it was really painful whenever he was on the breast and he wouldn't stay long, and I just knew something wasn't right. So we went to another lactation consultant, and she said that we should really get a second opinion. The pediatrician said that we should get a second opinion on his ties. He ended up having a tongue tie and a lip tie. And we went to a dentist, kids dentist that specializes in this. And she really recommended to have these cut. And so we went down the rabbit hole, as I've shared on Instagram, going to the chiropractor and prepping weeks for this and doing exercises, and then also having the ties clipped and doing more exercises for like a whole month, like waking him up every 4 hours and stretching his mouth. And that really reminds me of an episode. Oh my gosh, I can't remember her name. She did the same thing and had the ties cut. And so breastfeeding, it really changed so much after his ties were corrected. I mean, I know it's not for everyone, and I don't think every tie needs to be clipped, but it was definitely the right thing for us. The next thing is sleep on my list. And of course, we did not get a ton of sleep in the beginning. He is 6 months old, well, 6 months next week, and he's sleeping through the night. Like, if he wakes up, it's very far and few between. He has like at midnight and 3 and 4. Oftentimes, we now are able to like put a pacifier in him and he'll go back to sleep. So that has been amazing. However, I am still pumping every 3 to 4 hours, 24 hours a day. So I am not sleeping even though my baby is sleeping. My goal of breastfeeding, this is another thing that I just think we skimmed over in all these shows from other women, that we're just kind of like skim over breastfeeding altogether. I think that's a huge mistake. And I think I want to do a whole other podcast on breastfeeding because it has been such a long journey for me. But my goal for breastfeeding is I want to go a year. I would love for him to have breast milk for a whole year. For Christmas, my husband surprised me with having a service do freeze-dried milk. And I was so surprised. It is not cheap. You send all of your frozen breast milk you overnight it to this company. It's in Houston. So I think I love having it kind of be semi-local. At least it's a 4-hour drive away from me. And so they're going to freeze dry my milk and then ship it back to me. I'm so excited. If I can, breastfeed him for a year and then have another stash of frozen milk that I can hopefully store in the next 6 months. And then hopefully, after he's like 18 months, he can have the freeze-dried milk. I've seen where like people sprinkle it on food and stuff. And I just think that's amazing because freeze-dried milk will last years compared to frozen milk, which lasts, I think, 6 to 12 months from what I Googled. So that's kind of as much as I want to say about breastfeeding because, again, I'm like, first of all, don't listen to any advice I have on breastfeeding. Just don't. And the whole pumping thing, like, I just think that's a whole other episode that I'll maybe get into. Another thing is when I went to my first midwife appointment, it was a few days after we gave birth, I think. Yeah, after we left the hospital. But even in the hospital, the next day, before we left, the midwife came in our room and we just like downloaded and like reviewed the whole birth and everything that happened. And that was just such a relief on my part. And I loved just kind of having more detail about everything that went on because, you can't really get all that in the birth room and at least comprehend it, put it that way. And we kind of went over that again, even at my first appointment with the midwife. It was a few days later, I think. I don't remember. It was either the 6-week appointment or like, I think we actually had an appointment 2 weeks later after to make sure I was okay and everything. So just downloading and reviewing all that with the midwives, it really kind of put me at ease and I felt better hearing what they had to say. And even we had kind of our download with the midwife, we also had a meeting with Emily, our doula, afterwards also. And again, I just found it so helpful to review all that. What could I have done differently? Of course, they don't say a lot. I'm like, how could I have done better? And I'm also, even now, I'm like, man, I could have lasted so much longer without medication, and like, I can do better. The next one is invasive thoughts. I know Melody mentioned invasive thoughts, and I can 100% relate to these invasive thoughts. It was in the summertime when I gave birth. It was in July. And so we spent a lot of time outside as another place to rock him. And I think it really helped to switch environments, temperature, light. And so we spent a lot of time outside. And let's just say that I was planning, okay, what happens if a bobcat jumps in our backyard? What am I going to do? It was wild like that. What do I do if something happens? It was so wild. I think sometimes I still think about that, like walking through a doorway and like being overly cautious about making sure his head is not close to the door frame, just worried that I'm going to drop him, worried just these wild, wild things. Like we're in a bathtub and I think, oh my gosh, what if he falls in the water? It's just like, none of that happened. None of that was even close to happening. And I've heard from quite a lot of women that is really normal. And again, something else that really hasn't been mentioned on the podcast, but very apparent from many women. The next one on the list is not leaving the house on time for pretty much absolutely any event. I'm sure that stems from me just being a first-time mom and parent, not planning everything accordingly. Like we were even leaving the house, not even feeding him and not changing him. And like the chiropractor is like, it would be better if he was full and happy whenever we did this. So I was like, oh my gosh, come on, Jamie, get it together. So lots of learning curves that happened at the beginning. My next topic is our first trip in the real world. Now, of course, we went to the doctor, we went to the chiropractor, but being in public, I was so nervous about it. And so our first trip was to a restaurant, and it was on our way home from, I don't know, probably a doctor's appointment or something. And it was kind of an impulse. And I happened to have an extra bottle of milk. And we went to this Mexican restaurant. He did really well for being young. I don't remember when he was. I think he was at least 2 months old, I think. And he did so good. And of course, that my husband was with me whenever this happened. And then of course the next monumental outing was me going by myself. And I was so lucky that my husband stayed home with me for a solid 6 weeks. And we were both like, how can we do this solo? And we just got to the point where I was like, I'm going to figure it out. It's so nice to have him here, but at the same time, I'm going to figure it out. If he's here, we're going to keep leaning on each other and the same thing is going to happen. So go back to work. He wanted to go back to work. He missed just the routine and the work, and I totally get that. And so he did, and that was another thing. And then I think I went to Target for the first time by myself, and I was so nervous. I don't think I even really knew how to take the car seat in and out of the car because my husband just always did it. And I'm like, I need to figure this out. This is really silly. I can do this. At my 6-week appointment, I passed with flying colors. I still don't think I really felt healed per se. I still think things were definitely changing. I don't know that I still feel completely healed down there. And even my boobs just totally don't feel like mine. I kind of just feel like a factory in that manner. And I think it's going to take a while because I've had my cycle, I think at least 3 or 4 times. During my cycles before pregnancy, I was using a Diva cup, which is, those silicone menstrual cups. And, it was fine and I enjoyed it as opposed to like tampons. But I tried to use it and it won't stay in. I know, hopefully I still have some ways to go back to normal, hopefully. But I think if anything, I'm going to have to get the bigger size. Pumping, I said I wasn't going to mention breastfeeding, but one thing I wanted to mention about pumping is I didn't start pumping until, oh my gosh, it was over a month into postpartum. I started pumping, and I think that was such a huge mistake. I was so kind of overwhelmed with how to put it together and what to do that I really didn't start pumping. Now, I've even heard from women that exclusively breastfeed that pumping is just foreign to them. So, take that with a grain of salt. But for me now, looking back, I really wish I started pumping much sooner. I don't know if it would have changed much. Maybe it might have changed my supply. I really wish I figured out that much sooner in my journey. Exercise. If you remember the overdue, I was walking as much as I could to try and induce labor, but I really didn't lift weights. I didn't do anything during pregnancy, which I hugely regret, because not only do I wish I worked out for birth, I think it would have made birth much easier, but birthing out a 9.5 pound baby, oh my gosh, I am not in shape. And I've hurt my back a couple times, even now, just because I'm not in shape enough. That's one thing I do want to work on, but it's not just for the birth. I really wish even now I just exercised more and moved my body. Another thing is rage is my next topic. I definitely feel that. I get really frustrated quickly, and it's not really for any good reason. I mean, it doesn't have anything to do with the baby. It's just, oh my gosh, this short fuse with these hormones, it's wild, totally wild. I think it's definitely gotten better because I think my hormones are regulating a little bit more, but that was definitely something I experienced. I know we've talked about that a little with other women's stories, at least one that I can think about talking about rage and just that hormonal, the hormones shifting in your body is very real. I definitely don't think my hormones are back to normal after 6 months. I can definitely kind of see my cycle is not as consistent as it used to be. And I'm sure that's just my hormones trying to rebalance. Another thing that we haven't talked much about on the podcast is sex. more so libido. It's not like it used to be. When I was pregnant, I could have put like a 14-year-old boy to shame as far as libido. And like postpartum, it's the opposite, and it makes me so sad. I'm sure it's just the hormones getting rebalanced, and quite frankly, it might just be because of breastfeeding. I can really see that, like, if you're breastfeeding, your libido shouldn't be high because your body is saying take care of this baby and not try and procreate. So I can kind of see that. But yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that. And another topic that I wanted to talk about is having a new body. I know we hear a lot about bouncing back, which really I don't hear women saying that very much. We've had some women mention that they were able for their body to really heal so quickly. I have not found that. I feel like in the stomach area that it's not the same. And so I really want to call it more like my new body and really not comparing it to the way I was before pregnancy. I probably think it's another thing that, hey, if I worked out, maybe it wouldn't be such a problem in my head. I'm sure it's not that big a deal. I still want to wear one piece because we're doing swim lessons with the baby. But I definitely feel like it's a new body and being comfortable with the way I look now. I feel so different in that way, kind of physically and even like emotionally, even calling myself a mother. It's such a different feeling that I've really been trying to work on. And oh my gosh, who doesn't love hearing how fast things go by? I got so many messages about, snuggle the newborn and hug your baby, and it goes by so fast. And I'm like, listen, this does not go by fast. When you're in it with the lack of sleep and you're tired and you're just trying to figure everything out, you're like, the last thing I want to hear is how fast it goes by. And I'll be damned if that is the truth. It's like he's 6 months old and that newborn phase is long gone. He's not just laying there on my chest, falling asleep. All those little newborn things that he's was just, kind of this baby that didn't have a personality. And like, now he's grabbing things, everything he's grabbing and sitting up and rolling over and having opinions about how he wants to eat. I mean, you cannot lay him down to nurse him, like to feed him a bottle. My sister tried that. She's tried it like twice. And he just cries and gets so upset whenever she tries to feed him a bottle. And I'm like, listen, that baby cannot be given a bottle laying down. He must be, semi-reclined or sitting up. It's so funny seeing all these little personality traits coming out, and it goes by so fast. I'm like, oh my gosh, we're halfway to him being 1 year old. It's wild. Another thing, the topic I have it listed as body's response to crying. I think I might have heard that one time, but I feel my body has a physical reaction when my baby cries. It's wild. I get like this almost, my body kind of tenses up whenever I hear him cry. It's wild. And sometimes I even try to fight it and like relax. And it is just this overwhelming, like body feeling whenever he cries that I need to go get him and I can't let him cry. Like, especially even in the middle of the night, I could just hear every little thing and my body, like I wasn't sleeping well having him next to me because my body would have such a physical reaction to his crying. Not only that, I also just hear him crying even when he's not. And I catch myself, I really have to focus on listening. I'm like, is he really crying? I even sometimes have to look at the camera to see if he's crying. I still do that because I'm like, is he really crying? Let me check. Nope. No, he's not crying, but I can hear cries. Something I don't think has been mentioned from our stories. Crying so easily. That's the next topic on my list. I think it's obvious that, they make fun of women crying when they're pregnant and the hormones just making you cry so easily. And it doesn't stop whenever you have the baby. Like, I'm reading books to him, or I'm telling him a story, or I'm just staring at him and crying. Like, it's happening right now. I can just cry so easily, and it's not just being upset. I think I cry more out of like joy and like happiness than like being upset about something. My next topic is hair loss. Now I've seen reels where women talk about hair loss. I was like a month or two in and I was like, those women are suckers. I don't have that problem. I'm not having that problem. I'm lucky. I don't know what they're talking about. No, it doesn't happen that quickly. I think it wasn't until after 3 months postpartum when my hair was just coming out in clumps and clumps. I'm like, how do I have any hair left? Now, I know it makes complete sense that when you're pregnant, your body is holding on to all of those hair follicles that would naturally be falling out if you weren't pregnant. And so after pregnancy, after 3 months in, that's when it just hit. And I couldn't believe it. I'm like looking in the shower and there's just like clumps and clumps coming out. It's wild. I've said that many times on the show, but it's so true. I couldn't believe it. I was like, just when I thought I got away with it, I did not get away with it. The last thing on my list, super easy one, apps. And I mentioned the contraction app during the birth story, but this one, when you go to the pediatrician, they're going to ask how many times they have a wet diaper, how many poopy diapers they have, how often are you breastfeeding, how often are you bottle feeding, all those very detailed questions. And I started to write everything out. Literally, I'm writing things out in a notebook because I do like writing and journaling and it feels good. But when there's something that can like give you graphs and time stuff for you, like, why did I not do it? It was actually someone that my husband worked with. They had a baby like a month before us. And so he suggested that we download the NARA app. It is spelled NARA. And it has like this, it's white background, and then it has like this orange half sun going on like the app image, the icon. And my husband is a very digital, technical person. So he wanted that thing. He wanted to try it. I said, fine, we can try it. It's also nice because you can do it simultaneously, like your husband and you, or your partner, whoever it is. I mean, it could be another caregiver, could put it in the app. And so you can, track it way better than that. After we did that, I'm like, this is amazing. Why didn't I do this so much earlier? So much that I'm still using it today. Whenever I put him down, I'm like, oh yeah, I put him down at 11:07. Boom. But then like 30 minutes go by and I'm like, I have no idea when I put him down. So I love being able to track that. Not so much like in the long term, like when did I put him down 4 days ago? No, it was like, okay, when did I last put him down? How much sleep is he getting? So that has been really nice. And I also do it to track my pumping, how long I pump for. You can also track how much you're getting and how long you did it for, how long you pumped for. I stopped putting in my volume because I was being so neurotic about how much I was getting. So I just said, nope, I'm not even tracking that. I'm here to pump. I want to know how long it took me and when I did it. So I can always go back and see how long. Now, also what I've been doing with pumping is I set an alarm whenever I complete a pump. So I know when to pump next without having to go look at the app. One thing I forgot to mention about sleep. In the very beginning, I was getting a crazy amount of sleep. Like I'm talking 8-9 hours of sleep. And that was strictly because my husband had been taking care of him in the morning. I would take care of him in the overnight shift. So I would be up with him until like 5, 6, 7 o'clock. And going back to sleep and breastfeeding him, etc. And pumping, I guess, by that point. And then he would have the morning shift. So I would go back to sleep and he would stay up with him in the morning and feed him and put him down for a nap. And I'm telling you, I would wake up at like 10, 11 a.m. like, hey, I am rested. It was really, really nice. It was not really, really nice as far as a breastfeeding and pumping schedule and supply. But I felt rested. I felt rested more in those weeks or month, I don't even know how long I did it, than I do today. Because right now I am getting a max like 4 hours at a time sleep before I have to wake up and pump. That was really nice while it lasted. That is all the topics I have. Will I come back and do a 4th episode for breastfeeding? I don't know, because I'm still doing it and I do breastfeed. Y'all, no one can tell you how magical it is breastfeeding. I will say this much, okay? Because I said I wasn't going to. But like, another thing I figured out is laying down with him. I figured out, hey, Jamie, you can get another hour sleep, because I would go and get him from the bassinet and lay down and breastfeed with him and fall back asleep. And Oh my gosh, it was so amazing. And it was just so magical to wake up next to him, and he didn't really move. Like, he would go off and on my breast, in and out of sleep. And it was just, oh, the first time I did it, it was so magical. I just don't know how any other way to describe it. It was really magical to wake up to that. And it was, and just that bonding feeling, it still is. It's still really magical. I actually did that this morning, and he slept another, 30 minutes or something, a little cat nap. And it's so nice. He is biting, but that's another podcast. I think I will leave off there. Hopefully I didn't ramble too much. Hopefully it didn't take me too long to edit this. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a great week, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.